Yeah, no. So what was your kind of want to take a step back a little bit. What was your childhood like growing up in Hong Kong, and like how did that shape who you are today?
Over there is very fast paced. If you ever been over there, people walk really fast. And in an escalator, most of us would just stand there and hang out until we reach to the top, right to the bottom. In Hong Kong, if you're slow and if you're not moving, you are stepping onto the right because there are always going to be people running up the escalator on the left. So if you don't want to get run into, good advice when you visit Hong Kong, step to the right.
That's funny. You know, it's so kind of like my experience with like fast paced like environment. Like, so I'm from New Jersey, and like here everything's like so fast paced. Just people driving, everything's just like 1,000 miles an hour. But I went to Florida, and everybody's just like laid back and relaxed. It's like, yeah, we'll get there when we get there. Like we're just slow here in Florida, relax. So that's funny, like you said that, because I can kind of relate to that a little bit in the sense like just like even like here in the United States, how like culturally different certain parts of the United States are.
Mhm.
Um, so what was your first business initially? Because I believe you're on your second one now,
Yeah.
right? So you had like a CD company or something.
Yeah, if you're old enough like me, remember around the 2003 is where DVD is coming out in full force. We're still onto a CD. You can still see my CD collection here,
I love it.
collecting dust. So I actually started the first business. I was trained to become a recording engineer. And then along the way, on the day of my honeymoon, I found out that the company that I worked for went out of business. So I just got married,
Wow.
no job. So what am I going to do? So I actually took on part of what the previous company have done before is we manufacture CD and DVD. So I'm in LA, a lot of film companies, a lot of record labels. So if you are listed as one of those company, I probably have called you at one point during those times.
So now, how different is it? Like, I guess with the DVDs, did that like end for you? Like, I guess with like the whole online and stuff like that, has that changed dramatically?
I think hindsight is 2020. So I think we actually got lucky. We actually sold the company in 2013. So if you remember, that's when the year that Netflix is making better with the streaming. Our internet is getting faster.
Yep.
So somehow we got lucky that a local competitor actually purchased our company. So we actually move on and sold the first company. So that was a good choice.
Did that company actually like go down when Netflix came out? Because I know like Blu-ray was few years like around that time slash earlier, and then
Mhm.
you do have like Hulu and Netflix that all came out in like 2012, 2013 era with the Web 2.0 aspect. Did that company actually go down after they acquired your company?
I think it's slower, but then we have a good client list. So we branch out. Not only we are doing record label and film companies, we also do a lot of businesses. We
Hmm.
actually have, quite a few government contracts. So I would say that they get what their money worth for paying us. And, so obviously I wouldn't recommend anyone to start a CD DVD business right now.
No, no, it's so out of date. When you're selling a company, do you have to like kind of walk through, I guess, your process with that company, like how you did things for them, or do they kind of just you give them all your clients and they kind of figure it out?
I think it's somewhat easier because they are in the same industry. So a lot of the technical jargon
Hmm.
they understood. So it's just the workflow we have to explain and show them the ropes a little bit. Because all if you're even if in the same industry, different company has different workflow, different process. We focus on creating something special, like the unique packaging, like the
Hmm.
trifold, the 7 disc set, and then this with a merchandise. That's something that we normally would do compare with, using this as a commodity. How cheap can you do it? So that's always going to be my approach to how to create a premium, to create add-on services, so then you don't just compete based on what you offer as a commodity.
Okay. So 2013, you sold your company, and then you started your next company, and that's like a print marketing type of company now, correct?
I'm in promotional products, so branded merchandise. The idea we're kind of doing that when we're doing CD. So when an artist finishes a CD, they normally go on tour,
Mhm.
or when you have a movie come out, you have your movie release. So they ask if we do merchandise, so they could actually take them along on tours to sell. So that somehow we got into branded merchandise process. And after we sold the business, we think that this will be always going to be a good business. There are always going to be people who wanted to put their name onto a product. The product might change, but then the idea is always going to be, people wanted to monetize on the brand,
Mhm.
or people wanted to promote themselves and for brand recognition. There's always going to be people who are interested in a tangible product.
So basically, your company now is like almost essentially like you either make it or get it wholesale, and then like you pretty much slap their label onto the said product, right? It's essentially some of what you do.
Too simple and what return, but again, I am thinking about how I can make it as a premium service.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it, in our industry, people use the word swag, which actually stands for stuff we all get. When you think about our industry, you're thinking about the cheap pens, the cheap tote bags that you get when you walk by, like a trade show or a booth.
Hmm.
What if you could create a custom experience for your client? What if you could create strategies that could increase your employees' retention? So these are part of the program that we develop with our client, knowing where the trends are going. I looked at what type of product we have available to accompany what our clients is trying to do. So we become a partner with our client, not just another vendor that they could find out, get me 10 quotes, see who can come up with the lowest pricing on this cheap pen. So I think the mentality and the mindset are similar when we are doing the CD DVD business.
What would you say the most difficult part of your journey in building a business has been so far?
Is to talk less and listen more. So I think that's something that I'm still practicing right now, because you get passionate, when people ask you the question that
Hmm.
you really want to tell them about. But in fact, when we're on the other side of the table, we actually don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to ask you a question and hope that you could help us to solve our problem or take away our pain. So, I think that's a very important skill set that I'm still learning every day.
I love that you said that because a book that I recently just read, 48 Laws of Power. I don't know if you're familiar with the book.
Mm.
It actually talks about that as one of the rules of powers. Listen more and talk less. Because I think you really give more attention to that individual when you're really listening to them. And there's a part of that book where it's like, I want to say it was maybe a Greek goddess or a philosopher actually said that specifically, and it just shows like how much power and people like when they are heard and not necessarily always talked to, right?
Mm.
So I don't know, it just kind of hit a sweet spot for me when you said that. I was like, oh, somebody who finally understands that, like, and it's so hard to do too, by the way. Like, I've been trying to practice it more and more, like just listening to people and not say anything, just sit there in the room and just let them talk and kind of take it all in, and if they ask, then I'll say something.
Yeah. What I'm doing right now is normally I would tell people what they should know, but now I have on my desk here actually different post-its. I reverse that statement into a form of a question. So instead of me telling you, now I'm encouraging you to ask the right question, and then I'll tell you, yes, that's right. So then you think that is an idea that you just came up and I'm just helping you to solve it. So that will runs a lot better if you're in sales than, if I'm telling you should do this, you should do that, then you say, why I should listen to you. But if you think that you came up with the concept, then you hang on to it and you actually, okay, why don't you do that?
How important is it to build relationships, whether it's with business partners or even customers? Like, how important is that?
Well, business is all about their relationship with the client. Without a good relationship with client, then you don't have a business. So
Hmm.
I think, this is one of the most important aspect for the relationship with our client.
So you maybe your customer or client had a bad interaction with your company. Maybe shipping got delayed, or they don't like one of your employees, or something like that. Is there is it an all at loss with that customer's trust, or is there could you are there things that you can do to get it back, or is it even worth trying to get that customer back once they already lost maybe your trust or your relationship with you or your business?
That's $1 million question, right? If we can all answer that perfectly, then
Mm-hmm.
we will be better than we are. But I think the most important is, especially in the digital age, because if you don't address it earlier and properly, then people will vent their concern on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's 10 times as worse than if you sometimes, yes, you do get complained, you do get yelled at sometimes, you hear things that you really don't want to hear. But what you're doing, and I try to do that as many times as I can, is upon finishing up a job, I will send out an email, and sometimes I call them. I ask them, are you happy with the product and services that we provide? Are there any suggestion that you would say to us? Sometimes they say, oh, we love everything. But, in a few cases, I do wish that, like you said, you ship this a little bit faster. I do wish that more colors available. So then, I actually encourage them to tell me. And if it's something that I could fix or change in my ability, I do it without them asking. So what you're doing right now, in the time that we call a call center for a big company, we try to complain as much as we can. We escalate and we speak to the supervisor, but you know that they will never change. What if you're dealing with a business, whatever that you say or suggest, that you notice that company changed for you? How would that affect your relationship with that company? How will you build on the loyalties for you and the company that, have actually take your change into consideration? So you actually, by following up, by asking people that question, because sometimes it's hard to ask that question. You don't know what kind of result or feedback they will give you. But then I will encourage everyone listening who are in business to try that. Even if you are a sales rep for a company, do check in. When is the last time a sales rep actually check in after you purchase just anything from anybody?
Mm-hmm.
People don't do that anymore. They send a generic email, have you check out a few box, you get a Starbucks gift card, and that's it. But if someone took the time to really check in and see how everything is doing, are you happy with your experience? Then how would you feel with that company? How would you build that relationship? So I think kind of tie into your first question. That's one of the way that I've been building relationship with my customers.
When you get that criticism from one of your clients, is it that like it hurts initially, or it's one of those things now that you've been in business for so many years, it's like, all right, like that's maybe just our weak point right now and it's something we need to work on? How do you kind of handle that?
It's actually fairly valuable because company will actually pay a lot of money to get a survey, to get a really deep dive of customers' views. And most people just give them service level answers. I'm happy, I'm satisfied, whatever. Mm-hmm. But really, they're not. But if a customer really took their time to let you know how they feel, you should really take notes. And the general response is you wanted to defend yourself. You wanted to, respond.
Yeah.
That's really the time that you want to practice listening. You just listen, basically. You take notes. However tempting you want to give a response or snap back, don't. So, I think by me doing more of those sessions, and really I would go back and reflect, can we really handle it better? Can we really improve our process so I can avoid, this happen the next time? The customer might or might not order from us, but at least I could improve in our process so we don't make that same mistake or do the same thing in the future again.
When you're talking about that survey, do you think a lot of people just think that like ideally that like their survey is just gonna kind of go into the back end, like nobody's gonna read it, or do you think that's why like sometimes some of those surveys could be like they say that they rated you a 5-star, but they really wanted to rate you a 3-star? Do you think sometimes that happens because there's no like comment section to really say how like we can improve on X, Y, and Z? Do you think that happens a lot, or do you think it's just one of those things that people just don't do?
because everyone is doing right now. People get numb, or they really are. I get a few of those emails every day, so I just click whatever. I didn't really understand that question, or maybe I didn't recall that experience. But if someone who called me and maybe talked to me 5 minutes, right? It all it takes to do a quick surveys, and you shouldn't have like 30 questions. You'll get the most important question, and ultimately it's a question you want to ask. If there's one thing that you want to improve our experience, what would that be? So you're actually inviting people to give you suggestions that you could do better. It's one of the questions that I think will be lost if you send a survey. But if you call them or do like a video Zoom call like what we're doing right now, then you can really look at that person and get a little bit more out from that person. And people actually appreciate then you ask them that, because they always have something, maybe just little things that they wanted to improve or change. Then you can really address it right on the spot.
Knowing what you know now about business, what advice would you give to your younger self, whether 21, 18, 15? What advice would you give?
I would still stick with the listen more and talk less method, because, by maybe you understood wrongly, or maybe what you assume is totally opposite what the other person is thinking about. Let other people talk more, and then you ask questions, and then you come to your own decision later on. So I think, I'll stick with that.
I like it. Now, you said you came here for higher education. Did you go to college, or did you finish? Like, kind of where did that stand?
Well, I wanted to be a rock star, so I
I love it. I love it.
But I don't sing, I don't act, I don't play an instrument. So I actually studied to become a recording engineer. So work at the recording studio for a few years, been into sessions, a lot of fun parties when you're in your early 20s, it's the place to be, see a lot of music artists, you see a lot of producer, it's all the entertainment in LA that you would think about. But at the end, I didn't think that it was in me. So that somehow led me to, working at a business that do recording and also, make copies of CD and DVD. So end up, the path of CD and DVD picked me.
So what you do now, would you say college is necessary for you to do, or do you say it's kind of irrelevant nowadays?
For me, I'm not asking anyone to follow me, but, I think it's okay to not sure what you wanted to do. But if there are opportunities, you should always attend a college, university, or even take higher courses than, high school. So it brings you more opportunities. It brings you more options. Maybe you take a class that you know nothing about. So maybe that will open more doors for you. So I think, going on higher education will open up more options for an individual.
I ask that question in just about every interview, and yours is a little bit different. I like it because typically what I get is like, no, it's not really relevant. It's more like an experience, like gaining experiences seems to be more valuable. So I kind of like that, but I liked what you said is you should take classes on what you don't know. Now, I feel like with college, they don't always allow you to do that. So do you think that's a broken part of maybe university in a sense? Like you have to choose this 4-year degree, but then like some of the classes they won't even let you take. Do you think that could be technically like in a sense like broken in that sense?
Yeah, you're asking good question. And I have a son who is a junior going to be a senior. So I actually been through all the process with him right now. So I think depending on the university and the colleges that you're going in, if you choose one of those liberal art colleges, they actually have programs that the first quarter, the first semester, your grades actually don't matter. So and they encourage you to take as many different courses as you can, because your grade is not going to your final transcript. So, people actually, if I'm going pre-med, I'm actually taking some law classes or maybe other things that I know nothing about. So even if you graduate, if you're old like me, I still take classes and I still, find something interesting that I know nothing about, and I would try it. So I think, it's good to simulate the mind. And if it's just, physical activity, you challenge yourself to do something that you normally wouldn't do. So I think even if you're my age, I would still encourage you to learn something new every day.
So I'm actually coming up on my graduating in like 4 weeks college. So surprise, I'm really
Nice,
young. So
congratulations.
I'm really young. Yeah. So, but funny enough, what? So I started out as law and justice, and disaster preparedness and emergency management because my background is firefighting. If you couldn't tell with the helmet in the back, and I'm actually in law enforcement. So that's my background, and then I'm in business too. So I'm kind of all over the place here. But my college degree will actually be in cybersecurity, which has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing right now, which is kind of ironic because now it's kind of almost a waste. But I remember my freshman year, like you kind of had to declare what you wanted to do, and they don't, they didn't. Maybe it's the university just because I wanted to go like near home, and I didn't really think about broadening my opportunity. And I never really had anybody to say, hey, why don't you go out of state or go far away? Like I never had that. It's like, oh, just go to Rowan, down the street. Um, so I kind of like what you said, like just taking random classes. Now, are there universities where I guess you got to pay for them regardless, huh? In a sense, right? So like they don't count on your transcript, but do you think that's that idea where they come up with like well-rounded comes from is to take those classes?
I don't think it has to be in a class. That could also mean that maybe if you're interested in certain area, you can volunteer or you can even go intern at,
Mm-hmm.
a nonprofit, if you are, if those interest you, or maybe take a, volunteer position to help out in an industry that you find fascinating, that you know nothing about. So, all the uh, subject that you just talked about, you could probably find an opportunity that maybe you can shadow a police officer. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
can hang out at the fire station for a day, or maybe you can intern at a cybersecurity firm
Mm-hmm.
to work for them over the summer. So then you really get deeper experience then to decide which way do I really want to go? Do I really like the worst thing sometimes I think people hear is I study 10 years to become a professional. But then on my first day of the job, I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So then what are you going to do? You study for 10 years and set you up for that, but you actually don't like to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Do you think that maybe, and this is one of those, like, not, I guess if you had the answer, it'd be $1 million question, but do you think it's wise to take maybe a gap year from high school and not go to college and maybe, like, go travel the world or like you said, go to those internships until you decide what you want to do?
Yeah. Do you take one if you know what you're going to do? Don't take one if you're just going to sit home and play video game or do other things. Like if you have a purpose, yes, do take advantage of it.
I like that. Well, what if your video games make you $1 million?
Yeah,
Is
then you should
that
play. But I understand. I'm not debating you. I know the
no?
opportunities right now because
Yeah,
I like playing video game when I was younger, like
yeah.
in my 15s. If I'm born now, I will
Mhm.
probably be a streamer and I play video games all days and
Right?
stream and talk and play video game. I can make money. And, now my mom can say, you're not going to make any money, playing video game. I could just snap anytime and, look at how much those gamer are making. They're close to, I think they're close to signing $1 million deal on a gamer right now. They're not there yet as NBA or NFL level,
Mhm.
but I think at some point it's getting there.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to like where that space is right now. I don't know how much you follow it, but I kind of I follow it a little bit, and just to think like it, you see these 14 and 15-year-olds when Fortnite was really in its prime, where they were making like $300,000 a month playing a video game. It's crazy to think that a kid who's 17 can make $3 million in a Fortnite Cup playing video games after high school. It's just crazy because you tell like I guess I mean you're clearly older than me. And you have your son's around my age, roughly. Like your parents, you tell them that hey, I'm gonna go play video games, and they would like laugh at you and tell you, no, you're not. That's not happening. Like I even like some of like my friends and stuff like that. Their parents are that way, and I'm like when I hear that or teachers, it's like it's a different generation than what you're living in. Like now you see these kids that are on TikTok and are vitalizing these dances, but they're also getting promos from Bang Energy Drink for 5 grand a month. Like they don't have to work traditionally. They entertain people now. It's a different atmosphere.
I think it's a whole industry, and some marketers are really smart because I see the clients who order from us, what industry, are ordering more and what they're ordering. I do keep tabs on what people are ordering. I do see that there are a lot of streaming company that I never heard of that are actually put in bigger orders than what I call the traditional type company, the brick and mortar, the big major corporation. But I would say for gamer, your career is actually shorter than professional athletes. For NBA players, you might be able to play into your mid 30s, right? If you are good and take care of your body. But then if you're a gamer, if you pass 25, you're old already. You're ancients. They call you dinosaurs. I don't think there's a major one that passed 30. Not that I know of. You start from when you are 12, 13, 15, maybe up until you're 25, and then you actually have to find something else to do. When we see professional athletes, some of them are smart. They actually have a real degree. So they became business people. They start their own business or have their own endorsement way past their NBA prime. But you also see NBA players that a couple of years after they retire, they go bankrupt. So I think that kind of the whole thing that we just talked about, you have to keep into your consideration too. You have a path that you want to take, but at some point you might want to do something else. It's your education, is what you're doing right now, prepare you for the next path.
If someone is at the lowest point in their life, and maybe in this case it is that streamer that's like, oh, what do I do now? Or that somebody who just went bankrupt, what advice would you give that person?
Well, if you think you're at the bottom of where you can be, good news is you can't get any lower. So whatever that you do, you're just going to go up, but you have to do something. So you really have to take your surrounding, what is available to you, what you're good at doing, what you really hate and don't want to do. So I think a lot of people want to say, I have to do everything right. You don't. You just have to recognize and know what you're good at doing and focus, actually go niche in what you're good at doing. Maybe you're good at smiling on camera. A lot of us, like me, for example, I don't smile when I talk. I should, but if you have a good smile, you're really, energetic, then, show your, charismatic on camera. Maybe you're really good at talking, then there are other things that you can really do, or, there are a lot of opportunities. So don't think about what you're not good at. Think about actually what you like to do and what you're actually good at, and do more of those.
What would you define an entrepreneur as?
It's someone that can take an idea and then turn that into reality.
Okay. How important is, or I should say, restructure that. Do you think the school system is built for entrepreneurs? The current, like K through 12, not necessarily college, but like K through 12, like the current system that we live in here in the United States, I should say. Do you think it's built for entrepreneurs?
I think it creates a good foundation, but then I'm going to give you it depends answer. Okay. It also depends on what you do outside of your system. You can, I think in the world that we live in right now, you can just depend one methods. There are a lot of things that you want to do. Maybe you like to play sports. Maybe you like gaming. There are a lot of things that you can learn, I will call life lesson. Even if you're in a game, if you're playing in a team, you can actually build leadership. You can actually build your communication skills. If you're playing Fortnite or other games that you have to call out places. You have to let your teammates where to go and things like that. Then you have to be a team player. Actually, at a higher level, you can't win by yourself. If you're playing any type of team kind of game, you have to work with your team. So that actually build a lot of teamwork, and it certainly build a lot of focus. You can't just randomly play. If you are at a certain level, you play with a purpose. So that's something that actually can pick out from playing game. I play game myself still.
Yeah. Hey, I love it.
You can learn from that. It's not saying that the school system doesn't work. It certainly create the foundation. It show you how to study, because anything that you wanted to be good at, you have to study for it. My son watch a lot of video, just teach him how to play his game, right? You have to spend a lot of time. You will have to practice for it. if you don't practice for whatever that you're trying to be good at, you'll never be good at it. So not saying that the school system is not good, is part of it. So if you are trying to be a certain career, that might be other things that you need to look outside of your school system to try to be go on the same path that you wanted to go for.
I think you kind of answered this question already, but how important is self-education?
You have to learn something new every day. You have to practice on what you wanted to do every day. And, when you have extra time, work on something that you're not good at.
Do you think you could be doing, in a sense, too much? Like, say you're trying to start maybe a business, and then you also have other ideas for businesses. Where do you kind of draw the line with that as far as doing too much?
Well, you have to set goals and plan for yourself. So, for example, if you set a goal in the next 12 months, do you stick with or loosely follow your goal? If something that is way off from your goal, then don't do it at this point, or at least when you have no time. So don't start something new. Do set goals, and sometimes people set goals that are too far to reach. So I would recommend, listeners set a goal that you're reaching. So you got to really try hard, or sometimes you get lucky to enable to reach it. But do set easy goals that that if I do it for a week, I know for a fact that I can do it. And then once you get those goals, you actually celebrate yourself. Then it builds up your self-confidence. And, I can do the small goals. Maybe if I try harder, if I work for 2 months, I can actually go to the next milestone. Or even if I do it for 2 years, I can actually reach for the dream goals that I have. So set different goals and try to achieve them and celebrate all the wins.
Who are your role models, and what did you learn from them?
I have a lot along the way, but I think, one of my role model is I actually got lucky, and, in my local Chamber of Commerce back when I was in my CD, DVD business, I met a mentor. He retired already. He opened up the studio in New York called the Record Plant. It's the original studio that records Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
I tried to get a job at Record Plant at one point, but they didn't hire me. But I end up having the founder to be my mentor in business. So I think he changed me a lot, taught me a lot of different things, and no questions was limit. We went from how to get more sales, or one of my employees is crying. What should I do? I think, he gave me a lot of valuable lessons. So, try to be the same way that it be, his famous is, a lot of people do music, but some people do music and they make money. Some people do music that they end up, not mentioning where they are. So why is that? Then when you are in business, when you're in an idea, some people doing the same thing can get really rich and successful. Someone doing the same category can end up bankrupt. Why is that? Then you wanted to study the good and the bad, and to really fine tune what works for you, and and then try to do it.
What would you define as success?
The success for me ultimately is how I can measure myself doing more with less. With the less time I spend, I can achieve more, or the less amount of money that I can actually achieve, the goals that I want. If I'm able to find the perfect number for do more with less, then I would call myself successful.
When did you know you were successful?
I don't think I'm successful. I'm still
okay. All right,
that's
a valid answer.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I asked that question. That's one of the questions I always ask, and everybody's like, I knew I was successful when I did this, this, and this. And I like your answer. You're like, I'm not there yet. What, I guess, in your envision, when do you think you would know that you're successful? I guess I know you said about doing more with less, but what would that, I guess, more detail? Is it sorry, is it like having the big house, the big cars, and all that, or is it more like from a personal level, like trying to help as many people as possible in that sense?
I think that goes back to a mindset thing. Back when I was in the CD DVD business, we have a good few years that business is really booming, and I do, like you said, the big house, the car, the fancy watch, whatever. But now if you ask me again, those really don't matter. Why would I need a fancy watch if I'm just doing virtual meeting? Who am I going to impress?
Mm-hmm.
You know, things, certain luxuries is nice to have, but then go beyond that. What are you really achieving? It's not really help you. You need a car, right? To go from here to, is it really different than driving a $300,000 car than a $30,000 car? Assuming that all function properly. So at some point, it might not make sense to go chase that anymore. Is it just for your ego, or is it just how you measure success for yourself? So I think right now I'm happy, really happy with what I have, and I do try to grow my business, and that's certainly one of my goal. In as an entrepreneur. But then I think my mindset is totally different compared to 10 years ago.
What is your? Are you an avid reader? Or do you?
I try to. I try to read
right.
different things too.
All right, it's cool. I just want to ask before I ask the next question. What is your favorite book that you've read?
Right now, or right now, or all time?
Both. Let's go with both.
Why I like fitness. So one of my favorite books is by Pavel Tsatsouline, by Strong First, and it's called Simple and Sinister. So the idea I can actually relate to business, with all the things that I talked about. There are always a lot of noise, a lot of hype, a lot of trending things going there. When he's talking about fitness, right? Mm-hmm. When you do fitness, do you really need all that to stay healthy? So maybe, just do something that works for you, and practice day in, day out. You can actually get to the same goal. Then you go out and buy another $5,000 machine and, pay $300 for a subscription. The end goals is actually the same. You get there sometime, but do you actually need to listen to all that noise? So I think I could totally relate back to my business. There are always a gadget or an app that could help me do my business, in the way that they portray, to have you all the yards or the car, whatever. But what do you really want it to do? And if you identify with your goal setting and you actually find the path to get there, you might not need all that other fancy bell and whistles that people are advertising to you right now.
I love it. What's the legacy you want to leave on the world?
I don't know yet. I think I try to be fair. I try to be, inject to my kids that, hard working still pays off. And then if you really want to get good at anything, you really want to practice, maybe it's, I want to be remembered as a person who has the routine and who doesn't shy away from hard work when, he's trying to achieve something.
Final question. To the person out there that is struggling, whether it's physically, mentally, their business, whatever it might be, what would you say to that person?
Really think about what you're trying to improve and try to be good at, and do that all the time. And you actually wanted to build that into your routine, because, for example, going back to the gym, right? If you haven't been to the gym for the past 10 years, the first day is going to be horrible. So second day is you wanted to call the police, right? But then when you do it for, let's say, 90 days, it actually becomes a routine. Things are getting to get familiar. All the machines are not going to be foreign to you. You actually are more confident in your ability going to the gym. Same thing can be fit on to the business. If you are in sales, for example, I give you a phone number, call this person. He's going to buy from us, guarantee. How many of us who have never made a sales call can actually dial that number? I would challenge that, especially for a younger generation. Not a lot of you actually will call that number. Even if I tell you that, guarantee that he's going to order.
That's great.
Do you think that's true?
Yes, I do. No, I do. I would call, because you never know. I see that as building an opportunity, a relationship with somebody, even if they don't sell, right? But my generation now, I honestly don't think if you told them it's a guaranteed sale, they wouldn't do it. Either they don't know how to sell, or they are just too shy and like, no, you're BSing me. Like, that's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Just because I know my generation and how they are, and I don't think I know, maybe not everybody per se. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that would, myself included, I would call, but generally speaking, no, I don't think a lot of people would call.
Yeah.
Nah. Wow. Wow, that was a great episode. Thank you for coming on, man. Tell the fans, anybody listening out there, how they can find you.
Well, I'm active on LinkedIn, so if you wanted to connect and learn more about what I do, happy to network with everyone. And if you like to find out more about our current business, go to our website at garudapromo.com.
Love it. All right, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching today. Hope to see you guys next time. We're out of here.
Recording stopped.